Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Tanya J. Miller, and she is going to talk about how to build back our brains after bad things happen and to get out of our heads and jump into our lives. She's an author, speaker. She's done all kinds of um, fabulous, interesting things that I will let her tell you about. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sarah. Hey to the Bounce Back family. How y'all doing?
Yes, yes. And we're all about bouncing back here and bouncing back better, which is
Yes.
even a whole nother element. Yeah. So what's your experience been with that?
Gosh, my most recent, I'm still bouncing. Like I'm a basketball right now. I'm still bouncing. So, but literally life changed completely for me. Everybody else was having their life change because of the pandemic and the recession. Now my life changed because I got diagnosed with chronic neuro Lyme disease. And so my world as I knew it literally they was like, did it do a 180? Did it do a 360? I was like, no, it took me at the top of the roller coaster and then said, find your way down. Like it was crazy. But in getting my bounce back from that, I had to one realize it wasn't going to look the same, you know. And you said better. And for me, any individual that is especially one that became disabled because of a health condition, you had to find your own balance. You have to find your own rhythm and figure out what it looked like for you. And so my bounce may be a long bounce and I hold it, you know, when they do it, when they do your yoga breaths, like hold, I'm like, I can't hold that long. Okay. And then, you know, so yeah. And so it's really been literally like you said, finding that rhythm, finding that bounce, finding literally the vibe for where I'm at now. And so yeah, I'm excited to talk about that and dig into that, dig into mind matters, you know, how to get out of your head and jump back into life, how to get your mind right. I'm excited to dig in all of it. So you ask me, we go. That's where we go.
Well, and I'm so glad you said you're still bouncing because
Yeah.
I'm in another season of bouncing. And this week, I've got my new book coming out. And so I've been doing the toxic person proof space for so long and really thought that's kind of what the rest of my life was going to look like, right? Like my life completely crashed and hit the ground several years back. And I rebuilt it. And I kind of thought, okay, and now we're done, right? And I'm just going to kind of keep doing this and then I'm going to die. A long time away.
And then I'm done.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, right? And with it within the new book and the new venture and the new, I said this week, I feel a bit. Have you ever seen Mad Men? Have you ever seen the show Mad Men?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You know
Love it.
that scene where he's like at the top of the building, like we're in the credits or whatever. And he's at the top of the building and just like falling. And he's
Uh,
like, his arms are kind of, you don't know what he's going to reach out for. I feel a little bit like that's my current situation right now.
uh-huh.
So I'm glad you said that you were still bouncing, and I'm glad to say out loud what the experience I'm having right now, because I think it's really easy to say, oh, you wrote a book, you're a speaker, you're this, you're on podcast, right? Like my life feels scary and your life is all perfect. And it's like, even with major health things and things happening, whatever, it's just easy to see that.
That everybody else's is greener because yours just feels like brown, just dirt.
Yes, like dirt. Yes, there's no grass, just dirt. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know the thing about it, and it's like I think it's why I have this analogy and this picture in my head of when it comes to purpose, because the people a lot of times people ask me, you know, what's your definition of purpose? And I said, think about a tree. And I'm like, okay, where'd she go with this? And I said, just like a tree has roots, it doesn't have one, it has a ton of roots, and it's the roots are always spreading and growing. I was like, so that's your passion, you know, your passion is always growing, spreading. You might get a brand new passion at 65 that you didn't have at 25, you know, or you may get new ones every year because you educate yourself with learning all the time. So you have a lot. I said, but at the core though, those passions still align and come into the root of who you are, meaning your purpose, that trunk. At the end of the day, the purpose of who you are, it's always solid. It's always standing. And so from there, I tell people, I say, they're like, okay, well, where we go from there, Tanya? I said, well, don't trees have limbs and leaves and branches? I said, well, okay, that's your vision. I said, from what's in you, as you get, as the roots spread, the passions grow, the purpose still the same, but then you get new ideas of how you can express it and how you can go forth in your life. Like you said, whether it's trauma trials or just a bad hair day, you know, whatever it is, you get to see how you can grow with those tree limbs and those branches. And that's the vision you set for yourself. And it's not one, it's multiple, you know. And I said, so from there, what happens on the tree limbs and the branches? They're like leaves, fruit. You got it. That's the beautiful thing of whether it's the gift, whether it's the business, whether it's the project, that's the thing that continues to reciprocate itself. Because in the fruit or in the tree, there's always some form of a seed, and that means it's going to continue to grow. And so that's why I always tell people, purpose never dies. It never gets old, ever. I literally have that on a shirt. I tell people, and you would not begin to imagine how many, especially older individuals, and I'm like, older, I'm 40, okay, so I feel old anyway, but they'll see me wearing that and I'm like, you have no idea just reading your shirt what it did to me today. And I hope that was the plan, you know, because I want people to realize that purpose never dies. It never gets old. And so you can express that purpose over and over again in new and completely different ways all day, every day. And like you said, yours came out, a new way of which your purpose is showing itself is after life. And for me, same thing. Like my bright lime green is on purpose. It's because lime is the color of Lyme disease awareness. So I'll try to wear lime as much as I can. I actually have some even lime shirts that I made because I was like, I don't see anybody representing, you know, for the Lyme community. I was like, so I got to make us some message tees because we got to be fly in our awareness. You know, you see all of it for all of the other bigger names, but as much as I want to share it, I also want to bring the awareness too. So that's part of a new way I'm going forth in my purpose and destiny now. So yeah, it's a new way, it's a new journey, but it's still at the core of who we are because it's still aligning to our purpose. And so yeah, that's how we bounce back because at the core, we're the purpose is there.
Love that about the new fruits and trees and branches and stuff, right? And we have to have the branches, we have to have the roots and the what's the middle tree called? Trunk, thank you. Have some coffee. So the trunk and the branches before there's fruits and leaves, right? Because it can feel really scary. I think my listeners are familiar with my experience and then yours experience. It's like you felt like your tree got chopped in half, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, but the roots were still there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
the
want to
roots
talk
were
about that
still there.
experience?
Say that again.
Talk about that experience, feeling
Yeah.
as if you're chopped in half. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so my very first book project I wrote is called Mind Matters. Get out of your head and jump back into life. And the other little tagline I say is because sometimes you get stuck and I want to help you get unstuck and back on purpose. And I'm like, tell you know, when I was doing all the interviews and stuff for the book, like, well, how did you come up with that? I said, oh, I lived it. They were like, what do you mean? I lived it. I was in my head stuck, pretty much had a full-on breakdown, except I couldn't take off work because I was the only one working because we were in the middle of the '08 recession. You remember that one, the big one that hit the real estate crisis? Until you married into a family that their whole business was real estate. So it was like, oh my God, Armageddon has hit me. Like I thought, I mean, chopped off, cut up, put it in the river. Like I was like every aspect hit me at one time because I'm a person, especially as a strategist and a life coach, I'm able to, you know, okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's dig into it. I got hit with everything and it just kept coming. I got hit with finances. We literally, between my husband and I, in 7 years, we were either laid off or unemployed 6 times between the both of us. That means we had $0. we were in the negative, okay? Just after me moving across the state of the country, just after what we thought was a beautiful wedding that we probably, and we paid for it, no debt, none of that. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know we were gonna be broke after. Like, I didn't know the crisis would come, because we weren't broke, but the crisis literally hit right after, and we were like, well, why didn't anybody tell us it was about to hit? You know, we might have made some changes, but that happened. So finances, no job, or job loss, or then I was hit because I'm a female warrior of endometriosis. So before Lyme, I was already a chronic. I had a chronic disease, and so I was battling endometriosis. And so if you realize 6 times of unemployment, that means you probably didn't have insurance. Yeah, Tanya didn't have health insurance in the middle of that. So I couldn't get some of the meds I needed for endometriosis. So it was just horrible. So your body in pain, you're no money, no job. And then you get hit with so much as well. I found out even during that time that I battled with infertility. And so all my friends, I thought something was in the water, okay, at our church, because it was called Living Waters, and it felt like something was in the water, because they all were like pregnant back to back. Like, I'm not lying, the babies were born a week apart, and it was like 6 of them. And I was like, if one more person asked me when we having a baby, I'm gonna crack up. Well, I did. I did. But in the process of that, me, and I'm not making fun, I'm telling you, because that's what happened to me. Deep intensive therapy. I think I probably went to therapy at least maybe 2-3 times a week. I got back to realizing I stopped doing my purpose. I stopped doing what made me me. And one of those things was writing. And at the time, it was just my blog, Talking with Tanya. And so I stopped, and I was like, that's probably why, because I don't know if you're like me, but something about when you're able to encourage and motivate somebody else, it helps you. Even if you're down, it helps you to get encouraged yourself. My dad's a pastor, and he would always say, when the pastors started preaching, the other pastors joined in, because they all end up still feeling like they getting their encouragement. So they hyping each other out, and they don't had a preach-a-thon at the end of service. But yeah, I literally got back to doing the things that I knew were in me, one of which was writing. And I wrote Mind Matters not knowing it was a book. I just literally started writing it as a diary, but not in first person. I just started writing it, like literally saying to myself, I just don't want anybody else to ever feel like this. I don't want anybody to deal with stuff like this and not know what to do. I said, and then I don't want anybody that sees that person to say the wrong things, because sometimes, as much well-intentional they are, they don't say the right things, but it's from the space of wanting to encourage or be there for them. And so talk about that, and so
Yeah.
I've been chopped up and all that. I have.
Well, I've had several friends. I got pregnant very easily, but all my friends seems like struggle with infertility, including my college roommate who had 5 miscarriages.
Wow.
Right. And that's really where I learned, because you were talking about people saying things that trying to be encouraging, but really hurtful, right? Like, I will never ask anybody, so you think about having a baby? I will never ask that to anybody anymore. Or, so when you can have another baby? Or, I would just never say that, because I didn't know before that could be hurtful. But when I had so many friends struggling with infertility, it was incredibly hurtful, and walking with her through 5 miscarriages, she ended up fostering to adopt, and now she has had her surprise pregnancy. She's pregnant with her 3rd birth child. It's her 4th child total.
Yeah,
and this,
that's a blessing.
this was a surprise, right? And it's crazy, but we hear people talk about the end of the story. Now when she gets online, yeah, I've got this foster child who I just love, and God meant for me to have him, and so that's why I went through all that, and now I've had 2 birth babies, and now this surprise baby. It's easy on that, and she knows it. She talks about it. She's like, it's easy on that end. because it
Mm-hmm.
all works.
Yeah.
It's hard on miscarriage number 3,
Yeah.
miscarriage number 4, and they go into church and somebody's saying, so when are you guys having a baby?
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible then.
Yeah, yeah. And we even went through that. I talked about it some more recently, before I actually got sick. It's crazy how stuff God does it. Before I got sick, we had tried again IVF. And in the process of IVF, we found out so much information about us that we didn't even know. I'm a carrier of what's called hemoglobin C trait. And so sometimes I actually present with full blown episodes. In the process of IVF, we found out my husband is the carrier of sickle trait. He never knew his entire life. He never knew. And so they pretty much gave us the statistics, and pretty much probably 75% they would get a trait. About 1 in 4, they would get the full-blown SC disease, which is one of the worst forms of sickle cell. And so it was like, okay, like air bubble, all of that just gone. And then even more happened. We went through, you know, more of the process. And then we had to make the decision, you know, as believers, it's hard to make the decision to abort. And they're like, Tanya, well, it was your embryo. No, it was still a 6-week baby. I don't care what you say. It was still a 6, and that's your thoughts. That's your thoughts. But for me, that's how it felt. And so we had to make that decision, because I was like, if you looked at all the paperwork we had to fill out, no, it was an abortion, because it was so much you had to say. Oh, like sign off, notaries, and all of this. And it was like, yeah, this was horrible, you know? And then in the process of even all of that, finding out that there were just going to be challenges, period. Like we knew there were, but not to the extent of what we found out and through testing and all of that. And so it was like, do I crawl up and roll over and say, this is the end? My life is over? Or do I do something with what I have, which is love to give? And so I got a bunch, not a bunch, like Brady Bunch is like 8. So like I would say I have like a cajillion, because that's how many it feels like, nieces and nephews and godchildren all across this world. And they bring me love. And I'm grateful in that. Like literally, one of them will call or give me a hug, and I'm like, oh my God, you know what you did? Like, oh my God. And they're like, Amy, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay. But it's just kind of that bounce back also has to, like you said with your friend, and I'm even saying now, you have to figure out a way how you bounce and how you live, you know, with knowing all of what's in you, all of the me. You have to, you know, figure out that I got to deal with me. And in dealing with me, I have to find new ways and new things that will push me into purpose, that will push me into pursuing vision and passions and all of that. Because if I get stuck on what literally took me out, like you said, chopped me in half, I won't ever go past that. I won't ever get to the other side of where I'm supposed to help somebody else by sharing my story and telling my situation and my go through. I'll never be able to get to that. And you know, then people will say, well, Tanya, are you okay now? I've learned to find the joy in just being. And I think that kind of comes from me listening, reading. Well, I'm a listener, let me not lie. I like audiobooks. So listening to Michelle Obama's Becoming, and from there I just glazed the fact of, you know, being. Not everybody is able to just be, you know, and I had to find joy in that, not contentment, but joy. And from the joy, it's literally and I talk about this in my most recent project, the Me Project, Motivated Effort. I talk about it that the only way for you to be motivated and have that effort to pursue any and everything that's in you is that you have to take personal ownership of it. It's a requirement. I said, and then you also have to be self-aware of who you are. That's a prerequisite. And so when you're able to know that, and it goes back to my mama, and that's why I had a whole book like you talked to me about earlier about things my mama said, because she said, she literally used to tell me, you are who you're supposed to be, flaws and all. You know, you are made in that image on purpose. And when I began to realize that not everybody was encouraged to love themselves just as they are and to have a healthy self-confidence and self-esteem, not what's the word? I can't think of the word, but healthy, but not the other one.
Conceited. So not conceited, but healthy.
Yeah, I can't think, not conceited, but healthy. And I realized that, like, I would literally have friends. I didn't get that. My mom wasn't there. She didn't talk like that. And so that's why I did the things my mama said, because I would always talk about her so much. Like, literally, people were like, we need you to write a book. It wasn't even my second project, but I realized some of what I got wasn't just for me. And so that's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the great, and the beautiful. It wasn't just for me, you know? And so learning that, living that, I'm proud to tell my stories. I'm proud to get up and say, yeah, I have Lime, but Lime don't have me. You know, I'ma still try to do my purpose. I may have to do it an hour a day at a time, but I'm doing it. And if that encourages somebody, listen, let's bounce back all together. I'm excited about it.
Well, I have a personal question for you. I mean, I know my listeners will be interested too, but it's really interesting that you talked about being. And my cousin yesterday, she said, Sarah, you've always been like a doer, not a beer. She goes, I'm just like a beer. Like, I just want to be like authentically loved. And you've always been a doer. And is it, my background's in piano performance, right? So my whole childhood was spent like, hey, get Sarah on stage and she'll perform for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was just naturally gifted as a musician and then practiced really hard, right? But it set up this whole dynamic of like performing and people pleasing,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be good or bad. There's some really good pieces to that, but there were some bad pieces. And she goes, your whole life has been getting on stage and performing, and here I am in the public eye as a podcast and writing, it's just really kind of interesting how it played out. She goes, but this whole concept of just being personally has been showing up in my own life. And so I want to ask you about that. And then I want to ask you too about grieving, because as we come into these new versions of ourselves, as I'm personally coming into a new version of myself, there's a grief process to that that's really painful.
Yeah. I would say I probably am a hybrid doer beer. And I'm probably a doer because I am a person that is detail oriented, focused, goal oriented, very much it has to be right. And that probably comes from, once again, the church background and my parents and my aunties and all them talking about it has to be done in decency and order. It has to be done. And so whatever it was that we did, it had to be our best. And so, but I said the hybrid because my mama is far from a people pleaser. and it rubbed off, I'm gonna be honest, it rubbed off. And so like my husband, literally, I have a caregiver and he says to her all the time, Tanya is not going to do anything that Tanya does not want. I just start telling her that, don't say it. And he was like, well, it's true, it's not bad. He's like, it's just that's who you are. If you can't show up authentically who you are, then you're going to feel inadequate and incapable. And he's the one that told me my dad saw that in me a long time ago, because he told me years after we were married, he said, your dad told me not to put you in a box. He said, because if you put her in a box, she's not going to be able to breathe. And literally, like, just hearing it, making sense of it, I was like, that's really how it feels. Like, I feel like I can't breathe, like I'm not me. And that doesn't mean I was not in corporate America. I was in corporate America for over 20 years. And it's the funny thing about it is I may have had one job when I started, but either through volunteering or working on teams, who I was always showed up and what I brought to the table and to the organization. And that's literally how I ended up always finding opportunities, because the doing and the being balance itself out in me. But to your next question, the grieving, oh my gosh, it's a complete process. It's a process. Like I said, for me, I grieve finding out the inability that I may have, or that whoever my spouse was, that we may not have children. I grieve that at 16, 17 years old, when I found out that I had endometriosis and some other stuff. I found that out then. So I knew that then, and it's like I even said to my husband, I said, well, I told you that it was a possibility that we could have kids. He was like, oh, I heard you, but I didn't know. I didn't think, like, for real. And I was like, okay, so that lets me know, as a husband, sometimes it go one ear after the other, but irregardless. He's like, but no, he said, I don't think I felt it until it was actually happening to us. And so he's still grieving. He's still grieving 4 or 5 years later. He's still grieving. I'm better. Like, when we had to go through the process and we were learning everything, I was good, because a lot of it I found out or knew prior. And so I was able to process it much better. And he he hadn't, and he's still in the process of grieving. And so I say that all to say, you know, you have to be mindful, whether you're the person grieving or you're the person that loves the person that's going through something grieving, that it takes, or y'all are both going through it. It takes time for each and every person, and it's different, and so you have to just be mindful that, like you said, your friend going through that, it made you take a whole completely different outlook on it. And so now you show love and support through those that have grieved that side of things, with the inability to have children or miscarriages. You show love and support differently in that process. And so I would just say, for anybody that is in that, trying to figure out, how do I do life now? That's it. That is the very first, they say there's 8 steps to 12 steps. Like, that's the first step. Now, how do I do life now? Because I don't, and I know Sarah would not want you to just roll over and die because of it. We want you to find a way to go through it, grieve in it, and then literally be born again, if you will, through this next phase, because that died. Now we're birthing something new and learning how to live in that now, in that moment. And I think that's the key thing, is living in the now and not the what was. Because yes, it was what it was. It was, but we have to find a way to live in our now, because that's the only way, like your friend, we get to the 3 miracle babies down the road. We go through it. A lot of times we don't want to go through pain, any type of pain in this world. That's why we've had full on epidemics regarding people in the opioid crisis, of not wanting to deal with pain. I call it stuffing. We are individuals and people, just a community. We stuff things, we hide it, we cover it up, and we don't deal with it. And I think the more we go through the harder parts of life and we deal with it, then we're able to heal later. And whatever that later looks like, as long as we're dealing with it, we're better than what we were the day before. And I can tell you that from grieving prior lives. I can tell you that from grieving, literally. I'll give you a prime example, right? Of going into my now. With Lyme disease, I suffer from seizures, so I can't drive. And then I have pretty much pain 24/7 throughout my entire body. And so I can't really walk without assistance. I'm usually in the house, I'll have my walker. And outside, depending on how far it is, like if it's a distance within my house distance, I'll have my cane. If not, I'll have my wheelchair. Well, Sarah, I still do. I had, I have a regular wheelchair, and I kept telling my husband over and over again, I want freedom. I can't drive. I can't do this. I need freedom because, like what Tanya's a wheelchair, I don't have enough strength in my body from Lyme to even push myself. Like I don't. Like when you do it with your hands, I don't have that. And so if I have to go out and it's to the grocery store, somebody has to push me. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want to be free. And he was like, what are you talking about freedom? I got free. Okay, I got free. I got my itemized motorized wheelchair. I'm so happy, y'all. I'm going everywhere now. I'm free. And he was like, I got an app. I will stop you. I was like, but I don't care. I'm free. That's all you need to know is I'm free. And so that's me understanding my now and being present in that. I could just cry and stay in my bed and be bedridden and be because I'm in pain because you're like, oh, Tanya, you're better. No, I just chose to live better. That's all. Because they're like, and everybody's like, you're looking better, blah, blah, blah. Like, are things going better? Like, no. I said, but I'm choosing it, and it's for me, it literally is an hour by hour situation. Like, what time is it? 1 something Central Time? By 10 something, I was in my bed crying because I was like, why does this have to be like this? Like, I'm tired of being in pain 24/7. And I cried. I got it out. And then I'm talking y'all that want something because that for me is what I have to do. I got to deal with those emotions then. I have to cry it out. I have to be sad. And then I got to communicate it. That's the big thing for me because when you do have something like Lyme, MS, cancer, any of that, communication is key. It's key because if not, those people in your head, they will take residence. And so that's how it is for me about being in my moment. But in life, you may be trying to figure out how to be a single dad now, newly divorced, and figuring out all of that, and trying to figure out how to do girls' hair because you never did it all the time. That may be your new normal, and they may go to school looking crazy for about 2 weeks until somebody either comes say, I got a beauty shop or let me send you these tutorials, and I've heard it, I've seen it, not just from single dads, because I talk about because that was how my brother was. My niece's hair was horrible. But even individuals that are minorities, individuals that are not the same race as their children or their children are biracial, I've heard that as well, where they've either adopted or have biracial, and they're just like, I need help. Like, hey, let's do this. Let's work it out. And so whatever it is, communicate it. And because somebody is there along the way to help you work it out. Sarah is there, y'all, to help you work it out. And so is her amazing new book that she got coming out. If y'all haven't gotten the first, y'all better get this one and then go back and get the first one. Because whatever it's about, it's amazing. And yes, I'm giving her a promote because she deserves all the props, because the work she does, especially to talk about this such a deep and heavy conversation, is courageous. It's very courageous because you are giving life and light to individuals that are in the probably the hardest points and parts of their lives, their businesses, their relationships. And you're coming up alongside them and saying, I get it, but we can bounce back again and again if needed. And so I just salute you, and I just, give you applause and accolades, because this isn't easy. Like you said, you were performing your piano, your Chopin and your Beethoven and Mozart. You were over there doing the world shifted, but it's still who you are. It's still at the core of your purpose. You've bounced back probably more than you've realized. And through each iteration, everybody's able to see more and more of who you are in your being. So tell your cousin you'll be here too.
I will. I love this. This is
You'll be here too.
so good. I mean, this has just been so good. I know people want to know where they can find out more about you and your work and your books. And I want to say, first of all, I talk to a lot of people about bad relationships, right? The whole podcast is Toxic Person Proof, and people who've been in really difficult relationships. And is your mom still alive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Golly, I mean, just the gift she gave you of you can be, I think we're learning more now that that's what you're supposed to say, but that wasn't normal, before the internet and parenting articles and right? We didn't, most parents of that generation didn't have that information, right? So she just gave you such a gift, and your dad's quote about don't put her in a box. I'm just about to cry, listening to the gift of your relationships, or, your sweet husband. I mean, you've just been gifted with some really beautiful people around you. And I don't know if you hear
with the world.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I hear about a lot of the difficult relationships people are in. So that certainly piqued me when I was like, oh man, what a gift. What a gift. What a gift. So
always
yeah, I love that. But tell people where they can find the book from your mother and some other projects that you have going on.
Yeah. Feel free to go to shop.tanyajmiller.com, TANYAJmiller.com. You can also get the books in print, digital, and audio, because y'all remember I'm telling you I'm an audio girl. So they're on Amazon as well. And there's 4 projects out now. Got at least 1 or 2 more coming out this year. I'm making up for lost time. So feel free to check those all out. And if you connect with me at bit.ly, all caps, join fam. If you go on our website, you'll get 25% off your first order. So literally buy it all up, because on there you'll see the books, the journals, but you'll also see, I know I'm bright today, but it says commitment, commit to me, meaning commit to yourself again and again and again. Because it all starts with you, aka motivated effort. So a ton of message merch will be on that shop.tanyajmiller.com as well, because I just feel like, and I always felt like this, I may not reach you with my books, but I may reach you through a podcast guest interview, or I may reach you through my message merch, or you may see me at a speaking engagement. But however I'm supposed to reach you, I'm just glad I did. And so that's why I offer those different avenues, because I want to make sure I fulfill my assignment when I meet you, greet you, or you come across me online. And that's even why we have online courses at school.tanyajmiller.com on a variety of topics as well. So feel free to check them all out, and definitely for real, Follow me on Talk with Tanya and let me and Sarah know how much you guys enjoyed this podcast interview. Y'all better subscribe to her page. Y'all better leave her reviews and comments. Share the podcast out because she over here trying to help y'all get toxic proof and bounce back and all of that. Don't not give something back to her. That's how you reciprocate that love. So thank you for having
I
me.
love it. Well, I am definitely going to get, I want the book about from the things your mother said. That's the book I'm about to get. And I will put all those links and stuff in the show notes to make sure people can reach you easily and get to your work and support you. And thank you for supporting me. And I'll be sure and leave a review too. When you're not in the online space, you don't know what a big deal that stuff is, but it's like, it's a big deal because it tells people they can trust you, right? I trust you in a different way than I did before this conversation, right? So now it's like, oh, she's trustworthy, right? I can't wait to write a review on her. But that's on the online space. That's how we know. It's not, just our next door neighbors, right? That's how people know they can trust you. So I love it. And thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. So you guys check the show notes. Follow her on Tanya Talk. Is that what it is? Talking with Tanya. Oh, the blog. Yes. I love that. Yes. Thank you so much for helping us on our journey to bounce back better and become toxic person proof. Thank you so much.
Yeah.